Dude, you there?
Hey, brother. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, man. Busy, crazy last 48 hours for many reasons, but...
Yeah. You know, I'm going to jump right in here because I want to keep this really short, really sweet.
Yeah.
I don't know if sweet is the operative word given
Right.
what the cause is about. But I just want to say that I appreciated your post this morning where you're saying, hey, man, like people need help right now, whether it's comforting or whether it's psychology, talking to people, just, you know, and this isn't the time to, I don't want to make this clear up front that this call isn't about fucking trying to sell a course. It's about,
right.
You know, giving people an opportunity just to listen to somebody, you know, like yourself who spent years and years studying this shit. And so let's start off with I'll let you just do a little brain dump because I know, you know, just 5 minutes. What's on your mind? What do you want to say to people?
Well, I think the biggest thing, you know, right out of the gate, you know, and it always comes back to this is, you know, you get with these big shootings, right, where these big waves of people coming through and going, you know, I can't believe this happened, or, you know, oh gosh, what would we do, and things like that. And it, you know, you really just want people to understand, like, there are ways to train and to prepare for this stuff. And that doesn't mean that things are going to go perfect and pretty just because you trained. But, you know, avoiding the subject, you know, unfortunately causes a lot more of that fear and anxiety and things on the back end. So I think it's really, really important for people to understand, like, you know, talking about these things, actually talking them through, actually seeking out a little bit of training. It's good. It's good for you psychologically. Like, these things are scary. I've pretty much spent, you know, a lot of time doing this, and it doesn't make it any more comfortable to talk about. It's just that I accept that it's there, and I'm trying to understand the best I can, and I'm trying to give that knowledge to other people. So I think that's one of the biggest things. You know, ignore the, you know, the political bullshit, and ignore, you know, anything else that anybody puts out there, and you just get to the root of it. And this stuff, it does happen. It's very tragic, but it does happen. And the more that we know about it and understand it, you know, the better prepared we're going to be during and after, into the aftermath and the psychology and things like that. And I think that's really huge. And then if you kind of dovetail that, you look at a lot of training in the way that we're approaching this as a whole, or at least what's acceptable. And, you know, nothing that we would have taught anybody in, you know, some of the traditional courses, you know, even the stuff that I taught back in the day and with the programs that I did would have helped in this specific scenario. If you look at the overall with what happened in Vegas, the guy was 32 stories up, you're shoulder to shoulder packed into a huge, you know, venue, or a huge mass of people. Not a lot of movement, a lot of confusing. There's already loud noises. You know, there's no fight. So none of the fight stuff that we would teach in any of the courses mattered in this. You know, there's no barricade. You know, there's no barricade. There's pretty much now, where are the components? What are we missing? Medical training would have been huge, absolutely huge. You know, how many people there, you know, would have benefited from having a tourniquet or having a little bit of medical training. So if we look at that, you know, we really need to start getting medical training out there. Like, what's basic trauma care? And people need to kind of understand how to get access to that style of training. You know, it's not always about one thing. You know, you can't hang your hat on a gun. You can't hang your hat on fight training. You really want to have, what are all these aspects of basic survival? And I think that's really important for people to understand.
I agree. And it's funny because, you know, I've had a couple of meetings already, and, you know, people know that we, of course, collaborated on a course, and people love that. And I've got a bunch of friends in Vegas, and some of them, you know, were really closely touched by stuff, you know, friends of friends who were injured and killed. And so it's crazy shit. And the reason I called you is because this is what you do. And there were 3 or 4 phone calls, and I'll talk about to you this directly offline, where I said, hey, I got somebody in Ohio, a buddy of mine, Aaron Jannetti, who does a course that's really different than the courses you've done. You know, I made some notes because I got a call with all of our trainers today just to remind them that, like, we do what we do, and we do what we do really, really well. But let's let the people who do what they do really well do what they do really well. And I'm glad you brought that up. Like, I've seen a couple of posts from people where, like, it's fucking hashtag this, hashtag this, hashtag this, and I'm like, wow, that's so exploitive. Can you be a little bit more sensitive? Let's inspire people. Let's motivate people. And I made some notes from my team. We haven't even gone on over this yet, but the questions I'm going to ask close to 200 trainers around the world is, in this scenario, what would you have done? What could you have done? What is missing from your skill set? And that's where you need to go next. What is missing from your skill set? Because there was no gun disarm, there was no spear, there was no flying sidekick, there was no triangle choke, right? And so it's really what you realize, separate to, we talked in depth about this, and this is, I think, the most fun I had watching you work when I brought you in to work with my team was the relationship between, like, me saying, hey, if you're scared shitless, unconscious, or dead, you're not gonna get to your next move, regardless of how well you think you trained it or planned it. And so, we talk about, everyone needs to dial in their situational awareness, but I don't want that to be a panacea, talking head comment, because you're going to hear that all over the place, and then you're going to go, well, wait a minute, what type of situational awareness do you have with a guy who's on the 32nd floor of a hotel, like, with 19 guns, right? And so one of the things that I just want to throw out there real quick is that your self-awareness skews and clouds your situational awareness. And if you don't have self-awareness, and self-awareness is your ability to look at what you're avoiding, what your prejudices are, what your bias is. Meaning, if you say to somebody, hey, like, we need some good trauma care, and we're always going to travel. When we go to big events, we got a backpack that, with refreshments. Why don't we have a tourniquet in there? Why don't we have like a little survival kit? But there's people, like, I know that the first time you showed me that shit, I got queasy in my stomach. I've been exposed to some nasty shit over my 37 years teaching. But just visualizing, because the way you brought the scenarios together was so three-dimensional, where it forced. And guys, if you're listening between the lines here, I want you to go and check out what Aaron's doing. And this isn't a sales call. I mean, I was on, and I'm not going to mention names on the call, but I was texting with a buddy of mine who is responsible for indirectly, because of the facility that he has out there, thousands of people. And I said, let's make sure this doesn't happen to you. Let's make sure. And he said, yeah, Metro PD, they do this. They make sure we get training. And I said, listen, I love cops. That's my main business. I train cops. Most of the first responder training for active shooter is going through the unconscious bias of a police officer. And you've heard me say this over and over, and I want to make this very clear in this call, that the first responder at any active killer event are the intended victims and the victims. They need to be thinking, like, this is their fight, they're on point. And the emergency response teams that come in are actually the second responders. And that changes. And that's really what I loved about your course. It was like, okay, like, we need to get shit done right now. What are we going to do? Who's charging the threat? If there's a threat around, what are the escape routes? Who's helping, the injured, the people that are down, and what type of training? And so, at the end of the day, the ability for, if you guys are listening to this shit and sharing it, you need to have self-awareness. Where am I lacking in my personal development, my ability to manage fear in a crisis? Manage your fear. Understand the psychology of fear versus the physiology of fear and the biology of fear. And then what is functional movement? In the case of this event or any event, functional movement isn't going to be a sidekick to the head or a gun disarm. In this particular case, it's helping people evacuate and some tactical first aid.
I mean, legitimately, the options are so limited. Right.
Is there anything in my little rant there that you can piggyback on or bounce on or elaborate on? I know we're saying the same thing, and we don't want. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, the way you break it down with, like, understanding the fear and the psychology of stuff, and then, you know, how that preparedness goes into it, you know, it's on the point. And I think it's one area, or, I mean, there's many areas that people kind of overlook as the general population, but one area that people don't get is, like, actually, I was just having this conversation earlier with a group I was training this morning, but anytime I see, you know, cell phone footage and stuff like that, you know, outside of, you know, what was the timing on it and things like that, I want to watch how the people respond. And I know that you've got to be the same way. I mean,
right.
This is what you've completely made, you know, you've created this entire system out of. But so if you watch that one of the very first videos that I saw was taken from very far back from the stage, right? And so obviously the further away from where the bullets are impacting, the slower things are going to set in, right? We kind of know that just from the impact zone. But if you watch that video, the shooting starts at 6 seconds in. The first fully automatic volley goes for about 11 seconds. Jason Aldean doesn't even stop singing until there's a stop in the shooting. So the guy sings straight through the entire first volley for 11 seconds. Then there's this big gap for probably about 10 or 15 seconds, you know, presumably where he's reloading or switching to another gun. And then he goes in on another volley there. And that's when, you know, music goes off, everything stops, Aldean runs off the stage, everybody starts figuring it out. But if you watch this video, everybody is still mauling around, like kind of standing, like in that disbelief zone. And the psychology and training, and especially the, you know, the stuff that you address through the, you know, the fear system and the, you know, fear management is huge. Because think about it, like, if I'm actually worried about my own personal safety, why am I still sitting there taking that video once I figured out that things were bad? Like when I noticed a bunch of people running around and I noticed the second volley of gunfire, but it takes people because they're just so confused, right? Because they're in disbelief that something like that could happen. And we don't want things like that to happen. I tell people all the day, like, I wish this wasn't my job. Like, I wish I just taught CrossFit. You know, I wish that I didn't have to worry about bad guys going and murdering people. But it does happen. It does exist. And you're really, you know, really chopping your own legs off if psychologically you're in such denial about it that you can make a statement like, I can't believe this doesn't happen, or I can't believe this has happened, and things like that. Because that really will put you back. That's that, you know, okay, what's your situational awareness? Did you think that was firecrackers? Did you think that was a helicopter? Or did you at least assume that it might be gunfire? And then how fast did you make that assumption, or at least that observation? And then that's what's really going to start your, oh, shit, what do I do now? But if it took you 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds for you to, you know, either manage your fear or rationalize your fear, you know, to come up with a legitimate observation that, oh, crap, I'm actually in danger at this moment, you know, that's 10 or 15 seconds you're behind the curve. And so getting people to understand the psychology of it, understanding that things are proper, but then also understanding their own limitations. And that's going to be limited by, you know, physical ability, prior training, and then also resources to you. So, you know, in our courses, we teach a bunch of different components. But like I said, like right out of the gate, half the shit I teach in my courses would have done nobody, you know, no good, you know, any good. Wow, I just double negative the hell out of that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, no, go ahead.
Aaron, I just want to point something out there. That, you know, that is why when I first saw your video, like a couple, you know, people were really surprised that I called you and that I actually invited you to come teach and that I actually had you train a bunch of my trainers because of your honesty, your humility, your integrity. And you know, while there's people now selling their active shooter program, like it didn't matter if everyone could have been armed there. It didn't matter. Mm-hmm. There's nobody's returning fire. You don't know where it's coming from, and your pistol's not going to hit that target. And it just, you know, like separate to that, disgusting me. And that's why I wanted to get you on the phone, because you're like one of the only guys who will go like, hey, like, you know, 90% of my course is irrelevant. What was relevant here was like the tactical first aid part and the idea of reverse engineering and just doing any type of scenario training stress inoculates people a little bit so that they, you know, and we talk about this all the time, this denial in what we call the, you know, the golden rules of any violent encounter, but the golden rules of life is to accept what's happening. And if you get up a flat tire going, man, I can't believe I got a flat, while you're saying that, the flat is still flat. And if you're saying, you know, oh, man, I can't believe this is happening. Holy shit. And we need to help people, like, just process that information. And the only way to do it is through self-awareness. When if all you're doing is posting memes, pray for Vegas, if all you're doing is getting up there going, we need more gun control, you're still not doing any training. There's no training going on. And really that's the message of this call. I don't care where you get the training. In this case here, what you needed is get your shit together training. That's fear management and mindset, and then understanding, how to move through a crowd. I got called after the Paris attack, and I got called with some other stuff where there's ways to move through a crowd, and it's not that like there's a course on that, but there's if you're just the people that survive car accidents are the ones that are looking like a multi-car pileup, are the ones that keep their shit together, not go fetal and put their hands up and crash in another car. There's a way to navigate chaos, and but it doesn't start if you don't accept. Okay, I am in chaos. But the biggest thing here is once the shooting stopped, how many people know how to do it, either to yourself if you were hit, or to somebody else right away if you had the courage and tenacity to stay on scene and help, because I know a lot of people just ran.
Yeah, well, and I think that's also one of the important lessons that we try to talk to people about is you really, 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 especially in this. I mean, this is very reminiscent of Bataclan theater. You know what I mean? It's just they shot from the mezzanine down into a large group of people at a concert. There's chaos. There's people to shoulder to shoulder. And when you break that situation down, like, that just sucks. Like, I mean, that is by far the worst kind of situation that you can find yourself in. And understanding, like you said, how to move through a crowd, the tactical medicine, if you can stay on there. But one of the things that we really try to make people understand is you can't rely on group response. You really need to kind of prepare yourself as an individual. And these are the conversations we have a lot. But even if I was at that concert with a large group of people, I was there with, 6 or 7 of my friends, or maybe I was in town for a bachelor party or whatever, and there's this big group of people, that's not a group situation, because if we're close to where the shooting is actually impacting and we disperse and now we're sucked into a group of thousands of people shoulder to shoulder, my priorities are truly, if we're being honest, priority number one, especially the closest you get to the actual impact zone, is going to be yourself. You're going to have self-preservation. Right. You really can't. That's super hard to fight. So people need to understand that. And yeah, we're saying, hey, tactical medicine would have really come into play. You could have gone out and helped people, but I openly tell people in my class and openly admit that there's a high likelihood that you're not going to go back. And if we're being honest, if we want to be from a legitimate tactical standpoint, not an emotional standpoint, but a legitimate tactical standpoint, I wouldn't want to go back, because maybe there's a second shooter that's waiting for the first shooter to get taken out. Maybe they planted a bomb and they're waiting for first responders to show up, and now there's going to be a secondary attack. You never know those things. So tactically, I would want to leave. But knowing that, that kind of first aid, as many people as we can get to do that, then the people that we care about are the people that are in our close proximity, and the ones that are there and we can save the lives of, we have that skill set. But I think all too often that, people assume they can't do that. That shit's for doctors. And I think one of the last phone calls you and I had, where it was a video call you and I did, but, you did the reference about, like, look, I can teach you how to use a fire extinguisher to put out a fire, but it doesn't make you a fucking fireman, but you can put out a small fire.
Right.
It's kind of the same analogy. Like, I'm not making you a doctor. You're not certified. You're not a freaking combat medic, but I can teach you how to keep the red shit in the body pretty damn good, and in the very least buy some time until second responders or EMS, however you want to look at it, can get there. But you have to look at it as an individual. You can't have this overall group setting, because when the chaos sets in, self-preservation's a bitch to fight, and you kind of have to accept that.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that a lot of people, when the dust settles, deal with that guilt of really overthinking why they move. And it's an important thing to talk about. And again, one of the things that I think distinguishes you from a more pedantic approach to, hey, this is an active shooter, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, and it's just more of that like human talk, and I appreciate that, and I hope other people appreciate that. I don't want to keep this long. I woke up to this, and I texted you right away. I hadn't even seen your post at the time, and my team had posted to me, and of course I got family and friends in there, and like so late last night, I got the all clear on a couple of people that they were safe, so I was able to go to bed, but woke up to the fucking horrific result of the event. Contacted all the cops we know and all that, and it's just a nightmare to be there. But I wanted to get on a call with you because I knew the talk we were going to have was going to be like a talk for citizens, for good Samaritans who go, I just want to be able to go out with my family and enjoy the day and not have to deal with this. And the reality is, like you said, shit happens. There's fucking evil out there, and it will not go away by you. And if I don't know what I would have done, how do I seek some education? Because all we're trying to do is activate the reticular cortex in your brain, the part of your where your cognitive brain and your survival system meet this, and we to train the RAS and the list. Any thoughts, brother?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things. You broke up a little bit, so I missed a little bit of that last piece into it. But I mean, you have to expose yourself to it, and train. I can't stress it enough. Like everything I do that I put out, I'm not saying come to Columbus, Ohio, and train with me. You know what I mean? It's go get freaking training, man. There's amazing programs that teach the trauma care. There's amazing people out there that are teaching active shooter and self-defense and things like that. I mean, hell, you've got 30 plus years of DVDs, VHSs, articles, blogs, all that kind of stuff. Like the information's out there. If you're going to get to a place where psychologically you can bounce back from it or deal with it in the midst of it, you have to actually expose yourself to it. And no, it's not what anybody wants. Like I said, this isn't what I want to do, but you just have to. So I can't stress it enough. I mean, there are people out there. I am not shy in any way, shape, or form of sending people to other people. There's plenty of fantastic programs. I sure as hell can't take care of everybody. So the biggest message is, man, just, expose yourself to it. Learn piece by piece, one step at a time. It doesn't, you don't have to fire hose yourself and get completely, but one step at a time. Go experience. If you never had a gun, go hear and feel what a gun sounds like, what it feels like, what it smells like, to expose yourself to that and be ready for that. Research some of the stuff that Tony's put out on, how your body's going to respond initially and how you can turn that to a positive. Then go learn how to fight. Then go learn a little bit about trauma care. Take it one little step, one little piece at a time. But, you got to take that first step, because not doing anything is what is causing the high amounts of fear and anxiety and chaos, in the back end of it. It's a chaotic situation in its own. And if you don't know anything about it and you've sheltered yourself from it, it's going to be that much worse. It sucks, but it's the best way to expose yourself.
What's your website for people who want those resources? How do they learn more?
Yeah, for sure. So I've got my website is Aaron Aaron Jannetti JANNETTI.com. And then our website where we have our what's that?
I said we'll find that one easy now, right? Yeah,
right. Aaron Jannetti, 2 T's, 2 N's, 2 T's. But and then where our resource kind of dump page is at endeavordcf.com/active shooter. So that's ENDEAVORDCF.com and then /active shooter. And we've got videos there, research articles and studies Tons of different, contributors. You were on there plenty of times. Rob Pincus, Department of Homeland Security, right? There's a bunch of, great resources on there. And we try to update that and get information out. I do a newsletter that I try to keep up with every single week that just kind of keeps people informed on what's going on and how to train and things like that. So our goal is just to be as valuable to people as we possibly can.
Okay, man. Well, as always, I enjoy your perspective, and I agree with you that we are in business and you'd rather be teaching fitness, and I'd rather be playing with my family and my dogs, but It is what it is. Hey, we'll connect after this. We'll get on a call and talk about some other stuff, but I want to thank you for taking the time. I know how busy things are. You were in the middle of doing what you do before this happened, right? You're working with a group this morning, and you got more shit going on this afternoon. So, okay, man, you be safe, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right, thank you, Tony.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.